This is a story about the Buddha and the homeless man. One day there was a homeless man, and he had been trying to gather food, and each day he keeps noticing that every day his food disappears. One day he caught the mouse that kept stealing his food, and he asked the mouse, "Why do you keep stealing from me? I'm a homeless man. You can steal from people richer than me, and it won't have any effect on them." The mouse then told the homeless man, "It's in your destiny that you can only have 8 items in your possession. No matter how much you beg, no matter how much you gather, this is all you'll be able to have." The homeless man was shocked and said, "Why is that my destiny?" And the mouse said, "I don't know. You should try and ask the Buddha." The homeless man sets out on his journey to find the Buddha. As he's traveling, it gets late and ends up at a wealthy family's house. He asks if he could stay the night, and they let him. During supper, the family asks him, "Young man, why are you traveling so late?" He answers, "I have a question for the Buddha, and tomorrow I'll be on my way." The family then says, "Can we give you a question to ask the Buddha? We have a 16-year-old daughter who can't speak. We just want to ask, what do we have to do to make her speak?" The homeless man thanks them for the shelter and tells them, "Of course, I'll ask your question for you." The next morning he continues his journey and comes across a sea of mountains that he needs to cross to get to the Buddha. He climbs up one mountain and meets a wizard. The wizard offers to use his staff to fly the young man across the sea of mountains. In a matter of minutes, they cross the mountains, and the wizard asks the homeless man where he was going. The young man says, "I am going to ask the Buddha a question about my destiny." The wizard, upon hearing this, says, "Can I please give you a question to ask the Buddha? I've been trying to go to heaven for 1,000 years. According to my teachings, I should be able to go to heaven now. Can you please ask the Buddha, what do I have to do to get to heaven?" The young man replies, "Of course, I'll ask your question for you." As he continues his journey, he runs into his last obstacle, which was a river that he couldn't cross. Luckily, he meets a giant turtle who decides to take him across the river. As they are crossing the river, the turtle asks the man where he was going. The homeless man replies, "I'm going to see the Buddha to ask him a question about my destiny." The turtle then says, "Can you please ask a question for me too? I've been trying to become a dragon for 500 years. According to my teachings, I should have become a dragon by now. Can you please ask the Buddha, what do I have to do to become a dragon?" The homeless man thanks the turtle for taking him across the river and says, "Of course, I'll ask him the question for you." The homeless man finally meets the Buddha, and the Buddha tells everybody, "I will answer 3 questions for everybody here, but only 3 questions." The young man is shocked. He has 4 questions to ask. So he thinks carefully. He thinks about the turtle that has been living for 500 years, trying to become a dragon. The wizard has been living for 1,000 years, trying to get to heaven, and the young girl who has to live her whole life unable to speak. Then he looks at himself and says, "I'm just a homeless beggar. I can just go back home and continue begging." So as he looks at everyone else's problems, his problem suddenly seems so small. He feels sorry for the wizard, the turtle, and the young girl, and decides to ask all of their questions. He asks the Buddha, and the Buddha answers, "The turtle is unwilling to leave his shell. As long as he's unwilling to leave the comfort of his shell, he will never become a dragon. The wizard always carries his staff and never puts it down. It acts as an anchor keeping him from heaven. And as for the girl, she'll be able to speak when she meets her soulmate." The homeless man bows to the Buddha and sets out on his journey back home. He reunites with the turtle and says, "Hey, you just have to take off your shell and you become a dragon." The turtle then takes off his shell, and inside his shell were priceless pearls found in the deepest parts of the ocean. He gives it to the homeless man and says, "Thank you. I no longer need this because I am now a dragon," and flies away. The homeless man reunites with the wizard on top of a mountain and says, "Hey, you just have to put down your staff and you'll be able to go to heaven." The wizard lets go of his staff by giving it to the young man. He says thank you and ascends to heaven. The young man now has wealth from the turtle and power from the wizard. He goes back to the family that gave him shelter and says, "The Buddha said your daughter will be able to speak when she meets her soulmate." At that moment, the daughter comes downstairs and says, "Hey, is that the man that was here last week?" The young girl and the once homeless man had found their soulmate. This story encompasses numerous valuable lessons and insights. At times, we must be willing to make sacrifices or let go of certain things in order to receive or attain something valuable. To truly transform and grow, we often need to step out of our comfort zone, leaving behind what feels safe and familiar, just as the turtle did. When we find ourselves alone, lost in our thoughts, our problems may appear overwhelming, as if they are the end of the world. However, by observing the lives of others who face greater hardships and fewer opportunities, our own challenges can be put into perspective, appearing smaller in comparison. By extending a helping hand to those who are experiencing greater struggles than ourselves, we have the power to alter the trajectory of our lives and shape our destiny. In unforeseen ways, the universe may reciprocate our acts of kindness, presenting us with opportunities and rewards beyond our wildest imagination.